Right. Hey everybody, welcome to this Monday episode of Crypto with Chris. Sorry for my tardiness today. I was actually out on a nature walk in the woods, spending some time outside, and my day got away from me a little bit, but hence my, colorful outfit. But I'm back here at the charts and ready to dig in. So let's get started. First, I wanted to touch on the Bitcoin cycle, basically, because I think this is important right now. A lot of people are saying, we're way overextended. We're due for a correction. It's top heavy, blah, 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 RSI, all that, which I'll get into. And that's true. That is true. But I think what's important to think about here is where we are in, the context of the 60-day cycle and the fact that we're only on day 26. And I feel like that's important because in the grand scheme of things, the sentiment is super bullish right now. Everybody's expecting Bitcoin to go up. Everybody's expecting kind of all of crypto to be going up right now. And so you have to kind of think about this in terms of the cycle. Because everybody is expecting it to go up, that means we're going to have likely what's called a right translated cycle, meaning we'll peak out in this 60-day cycle after day 30. And right now being only on day 26, basically what that's saying is if Bitcoin is going to top here and roll over, then we would in theory expect roughly a month plus of downward price action, given that. And I don't think anybody thinks that's going to happen. I don't think anybody thinks that we're going to have this, we're going to, basically walk backwards into December. I just don't think that, and nobody else thinks that. Like, sure, we might have a little correction, maybe a mean reversion, which I'll touch on in a second too. But basically, what I'm getting at here is I really kind of think that a lot of this is lining up to point to we have another leg up still to go. I think, we might get what's called like a mid-cycle correction, kind of we're right around the middle, day 26, coming on day 30, that kind of thing. Maybe we do come down, tag this moving average. But I think we have another leg up. I also think this looks a lot like a bull flag to me. It's kind of come up heavy, upward price action. And then we got this consolidation period. I think it's important to note too, that, it's currently kind of riding this 10-day moving average and sort of holding support on it right now. It's wicked through it a couple of times, but it's basically sort of riding this up. And so this is a nice, healthy consolidation in a sort of upward trajectory slightly. And like I said, I think we're going to kind of pump up into day 40-ish, day 50 maybe, and then, have a bit of a correction back down from there. But I just don't see us kind of losing it and dumping from here. Because if we did that, that would mean a lot more than just, we were overextended. That would mean that, we're still sort of in this sideways consolidation thing that we've been doing. And I just actually, let me go to this chart. This is a little bit better. I just don't see us still in that. Let me turn liquidity off here for a second, but I'll get back to that. So right now we're right up at the top of this range that we've been in. Let me go to the weekly. And I mean, yeah, it just kind of looks like, well, on the weekly, it's a bit overextended, and I'll touch on the weeklies too, because there's some important things there. But just looking at this first, getting ahead of myself here. A couple things I'm seeing. One, like I mentioned on Thursday, finally we did have the faster moving average cross back up over the 21 EMA, cross back over the 20 MA or SMA. And so that's, a bullish development. And yeah, I just think that, rapidly this 20-day moving average is catching up, and I see somewhere in this range, maybe down to the middle of this, to this purple line here as a likely support area. I think if we kind of lose that and come back down into here, I think I even touched on this on Friday too, or Thursday, that, that would be ugly, but it's continuing to hold. Like I said, it's continuing to show strength. And I think this is all positive. Like, this is what we wanted the best case scenario we could hope for, aside from it just continuing to go up, is for it to have gone sideways, is for it to have gone sideways and for the moving averages to have caught up to it. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. So to me, this is all very, very positive. However, There are some warning signs on the weekly that I think we do need to pay attention to. And, this is one of them. We got currently a big 4-spot bearish divergence flag here. Remember, we had the 5-spot here, and we broke down through the 20-week moving average after that. We had a 2 here and, a similar type breakdown. Now, does that mean I think we're going to come back down to the bottom of this? Not necessarily. You have to keep in mind these divergence flag don't dictate how big of a correction you're going to have, just that simply momentum has slowed and is diverging from price action. So that doesn't mean anything in terms of like the magnitude of the correction. We still, like I said, could very easily just come back down to the middle of this range. Or, we could conversely keep punching up and just bumping this flag to the next candle and to the next candle and do that for another couple of weeks or more before it finally settles down. And maybe, we ultimately come back down and bounce back off the top of this. So that's a scenario too. Just because you see this flag pop out, on a Monday, on the first day of a new week, doesn't mean that, the correction is imminent. I mean, this can, like I said, it can push this for, 2 or 3 or 4 candles in a row. As long as it keeps pushing upward, then yeah. So, you got to kind of be a little wary of that. Don't just immediately assume that, this means immediate, 25% correction. That's not what this is saying, but it's important to take note because likely it does mean that, yes, it is overextended. And on the weekly RSI, it is overextended right here, if we look at it, which is also a little not concerning, but something to pay attention to. Bitcoin is definitely overextended, but it's funny what we've seen, and I'm going to get into here in a second, is while this has gone sideways, alts, all this money I feel like has just been going into alts. Like, I don't know if everybody just made a bunch of profit and they just immediately started dumping this out further out the risk curve into alts, but it's sort of what it seems like is happening, and everything has been moving a lot lately. And then it's interesting too because like we got some of the bigger alts like ETH basically started pumping up on the daily and doing well, kind of outpacing Bitcoin. Is outpacing Bitcoin today. Like if we look at the actual ETH Bitcoin chart here real quick, ETH has been outpacing Bitcoin for the last, 4 or 5 days too. And then some of the bigger alts too, like Solana, bigger market cap alts like Solana, that has too similar sort of behavior that we're seeing with Solana though, in terms of it being a little bit overextended. Its RSI on the weekly is also overbought. And it too has a bearish divergence flag on the weekly, which, is noteworthy and is important to pay attention to. But it's funny, there's still other alts that I'll touch on that are continuing to pump. So it's like these pumped up and then are leveling off. And then that money's coming out of these and going even further out the risk curve. And so it's been an interesting, phenomenon to watch play out. And actually, I'll touch on the dominance here in a second too. But so yeah, so let's look at Solana real quick. It's funny, real similar to Bitcoin, but you can tell that unlike Bitcoin, whereas it pumped more like, give or take 2 weeks ago now, Solana caught up to it, and then it's been pretty much going sideways for the last week too. So it pumped this whole second week where Bitcoin was going sideways, and now it's leveled off, and that's fine. It still looks really healthy too. It's almost maybe a precursor to what we can expect Bitcoin to do, but it looks very similar. If you remember, here's the Bitcoin chart, the moving average coming up through the middle. It's kind of resting on the 10. It hasn't quite come down to the 10 yet, but moving average is getting ready to poke through the middle of this range. And there's a lot of charts that look very similar to this right now. But this is good. I mean, again, we'd way rather have sideways price action and let the moving averages catch up than for them to immediately reverse and come down to meet them. So this is constructive. This is what we want to see. And this will basically just, build, consolidate and build and keep that momentum going upwards. So yeah. So on to the next chart, which has been the star of the show thus far, and that's BitTensor. BitTensor has just been crushing it. Like it came up to this level and just didn't even stop. And then it came up to, which was like the previous kind of cycle high, sort of local top, and just blew right through it. And now it's up 17% today. It's pushing yearly highs. It's crazy. So it's on a mega run right now. And it was up, 17% today, and then yesterday 15%, and then the day before, 7.5%. So sure, it's going to come crashing back down to earth at some point. But what we're seeing here is what's nice is this huge, massive upswing. Already it's like way more than 2 standard deviations overbought right now. It's sort of accelerating the moving averages, moving higher faster, which means if it did come back down to correct, it might only come back down to here or here and sort of hold these upper levels now, which is really nice to see. So yeah, this is probably the best looking chart I've got right now. I mean, it's just gone mega. Like, what is this run that it's been on since the bottom of this range here? We're at, almost a 3x there basically. So yeah, that's great. In the span of what, not even 3 weeks. So yeah, huge movement here. This has been a great chart, and a great one to hold on to. And then Injective is another one that actually is pretty interesting to me, because unlike a lot of these other ones, it's not yet throwing a bearish divergence flag on the weekly time frame. And yes, it's oversold in terms of the RSI, but it's still showing strong momentum, which I think is really interesting to me. And it's still showing strong price action too. I mean, it basically blew through the range here and immediately retested it on the daily and continued upwards. So we've got massive runs coming from here from Injective too. And this is great to see. I mean, it's breaking out and it's not really slowing down. Is it even showing a divergence flag on the daily? Let's see. Well, yeah, not really even. I mean, it had one a few days ago, but it just kind of ignored it and kept right on going. It's basically bouncing, off the 10-day moving average, which is really great to see and a really strong sign. It's not even coming down to the 20. It's holding the 10 and just cruising, and that's the best thing you can hope for. That's bouncing between the 10-day moving average and the top of the Bollinger Bands is primo uptrend material right there. So this has been another fun one to watch and to hold for that matter too. So yeah, I've been enjoying that. Caspa's similar, much smaller market cap. This isn't as big as, dang it, as Injective or BitTensor, even for that matter, but also really good sign. I think this is a new all-time high, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so it's basically in price discovery right now. I mean, this was its all-time high previously, and it's pushing all-time highs. So this is, you got to love when you're holding stuff that's in price discovery, that's in new frontiers for Caspa, and so and it's been holding strong too. And sure, it's probably gonna. I don't have the RSI. Well, let's actually take a look. Throw that up real quick. I'm guessing it's way overbought. Yeah, I mean, on the daily, what does it look like on the weekly here? Overbought on the weekly too. Yeah, I mean, it's got a weekly bearish divergence, so maybe this one's due for a breather. But still, it's nice because even on the weekly, it's way overextended above its 10-week moving average, above its 20-week moving average, and above the bull market support band. So, and it's setting all-time highs. So, what more can you ask for right now? I mean, that's like, this is great to see too. It's funny. Like I said, the money went up in Bitcoin, and then it's just going further and further out the risk curve, and we're seeing it in these smaller cap alts, and that's great to see. So. Rio's another one, actually. It's not in price discovery, but it, was in a range. These lines here, I know you look at this probably and you're like, well, what is this based on? They're in the middle of everything. These are based on monthly candle bodies. So that's why it doesn't look like it, but I like to use the month as, my support resistance range, typically, if it makes sense. Like if we'll look at it real quick, just briefly. Yeah, see, I'm just using this range here to kind of get a better sense of what that looks like. But yeah, so this broke out. It had a wick here, but basically it's pushing pushing higher highs too. So, and higher lows for that matter too. So very constructive. A lot of stuff is either right at the top of its range or breaking out of its range across the board. And that's really what we want to see. Celestia, this is a new chart. It's brand new. It just had its token generation event last week. So these are this is hourly candles here. So I'm not even going to look at that. This is another interesting one that I've touched on, Zero Knowledge Network. I'm pretty bullish on this project. It's very, very small, very micro. I mean, it's not very old at all, but I kind of like what they're doing with it. And it, got a little bit overcooked and is kind of just going sideways now. But you have to keep in mind, this is like a $9 million market cap. So, 10 ETH will move this thing 20%, basically. So you can't really put much stock into this. But these are fun ones to kind of, take little home run swings with and things like that. Rune has been interesting. I've been kind of digging through a bunch of older charts, trying to find stuff that looks good, that has constructive charts. And I kind of wanted to touch on Rune for a second, actually. So I was paying attention to it in the last cycle. But unfortunately, I didn't really get into it in any of these major run-ups. I was kind of buying around this phase and sort of missed the boat with that. But, it's done these massive like channels that it'll do within this range here. And then finally it broke out and broke down and everything broke down. But more recently, it had its bottom. It found its bottom in whatever, June or July, and has been steadily going up since then. And I know in August it had a big month. I was touching on it briefly back then because a lot of stuff was breaking out back then, but it's sort of coming back up to this resistance level, from these candles here. And so it'll be curious to see what happens when it gets here. But otherwise, this is a very constructive chart. I think that, it's broken up above all of its major moving averages and things like that. And it's kind of in a sweet spot market cap wise, and I think it could do well. So I'm paying attention to it. And then on the Bitcoin side, on the Bitcoin pairing, real similar. I don't have the channel drawn, but what I'm looking at here is, this is kind of a big range that I was paying attention to. And it's back up into it, and it's nice because it's been very constructive against Bitcoin too, and is up against all of its important moving averages against Bitcoin as well. So I want to see it kind of hold here and start to break up through. But this is something that I might kind of keep in mind. And then I'm going to skip through a bunch of these. Briefly, I'll touch on this one. This one was another kind of just one that I was looking through my watch list going, what am I missing here? Is there anything else out there that I'm missing that I should be paying attention to? And that's an interesting one. That's it's actually a fair bit similar to what BitTensor is doing. It's slightly different target market, slightly different, centralization. BitTensor is big on like privacy, decentralization, uncensorable, things like that. And Fetch is more about providing, machine learning access to businesses and different kind of things like that. So it's similar in the way it's structured, but its target market is different. But it's kind of been just slowly trending up and up and up against Bitcoin on this monthly chart. And it's also in a bit of a sweet spot market cap wise, and it's been around a little bit longer. And I think it's one that I'm going to pay attention to see, if it looks like it's worth a punt at some point. In terms of where it is against Bitcoin on the year, it's only up a little bit, but it is up some. Its USD pair doesn't look great at the moment, but also I think the interesting thing is if you look like this line's about a 10x from where price is right now. And if you kind of just look at this for a second, take a step back, it doesn't really look like it'd be that hard to 10x this chart, especially with the market cap as it is. So that's kind of why it's got my attention, is like, I'm looking at this going, is this like an easy 10x maybe? Like of course, who knows? Not investment advice, but just saying, like, I look at this and I think this looks kind of like an easy 10x to me. And so that's kind of why it got my attention. And even against Bitcoin, it looks like an easy 10x, too. So So we'll see. It's something I'll keep in mind. I'll pay attention to. But I wanted to kind of lastly here touch on the dominance charts. So I touched on this again last week, and since that time, we've had a big pump up in alt dominance, in others dominance specifically. And I don't know if I've clarified. I prefer others dominance over like total 3. Because total 3 basically just is everything outside of Bitcoin and ETH. And I don't really like that, because basically the rest of the top 10 outside of Bitcoin and ETH is like either stable coins or like kind of garbage legacy alts that nobody's really paying attention to. And so they don't really matter. It's like what's below the top 10 that I think is what is important to pay attention to, because that's the stuff that's going to move. That's the stuff where you're going to get the biggest gains. Nobody's going to get big 10x, 20x, 100x gains off of stuff that's in the top 10. So that's why I just don't pay attention to it. I think this is more important. I think this is more relevant. But like I touched on, and I'm going to draw this line again. I think that this is, that's a big mega move in dominance that was an uptrend basically from around this time in the previous cycle. This one started a little bit later than this one is now. This one didn't start until August, whereas potentially this one started as early as June, as the beginning of June. So, but I mean, if you kind of look at this, yes, it's been in this downtrend ever since then. But this is a pretty big deviation from that. This is no longer like a counter trend rally in an otherwise larger downtrend to me. This is like setting higher highs. This is setting higher lows. This is starting to break big levels. I mean, we're almost back to breaking this level, from where it was in February. And actually, let's look at this chart like from a candle chart standpoint. We can kind of see it a little bit better here. So where was the bump in February? Where is this? Why isn't that shown? Oh, that's probably maybe I have it on log. No? Huh. I don't know why it rendered or shows differently there. Maybe I'll put it online and see what it looks like. Maybe it's got to do with Wix. Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it shows differently on that other. Well, either way, it's breaking. I mean, it's almost up to where it was, back in August of 2022. So let's go back to this one here. Was I just looking at it wrong? I don't know. Whatever. That's weird. Anyway, it's punching higher highs, and I think that's what's important, regardless. So, what I'm getting at here, ultimately, what my point with all this is this right here, what we're seeing, the start of this type of a mega alt dominance run that runs for, 2+ years. I mean, obviously we had this huge dip here, and that's not anything that, you should ignore, but like, this is kind of what I'm looking at here, and this is what I'm paying attention to. And meanwhile, we've got conversely a dip in Bitcoin dominance going on at the same time. So I'm not saying Bitcoin isn't the place to be, and I still have, my biggest hold is still in Bitcoin, to be fair. And so, but this is something that is important and worth paying attention to, is really what I'm saying, because this could be the start of this kind of an alt run that we see that just runs and runs and runs. And obviously when you say, it's funny because you can say, oh, well, that doesn't mean you can just go throw money at any alt and you're gonna 10x it or 50x it or whatever. You still have to be very selective. Like I've kind of talked about in recent episodes, you still have to look at how they're doing against Bitcoin, what their market caps are, make sure you're not buying shady stuff. Look at the smart contract audits, things like that. Don't buy meme coins. Don't do stupid stuff. Like, do your homework. But there's a growing number of alt charts out there at all ranges of market caps, whether it's mid caps from the top 50 and up, to stuff that's $10 million market cap. That's barely anything. That's been around for a month and a half. Like all across the board, there's stuff that looks strong and has been outperforming Bitcoin for a long time. And look for those gems. Like I've shown several of them here, and I've gone through. It is funny though. I've gone through and showed a bunch, but I did go through this. Like I have this big, huge watch list here, and I'll just kind of go through a few to kind of illustrate my point. Let me just pull up like a blank chart here. What I'm talking about when I say don't just throw your money at any alt right now, is let's just kill this. What is all this stuff? Go away. Okay. Let's look at like I've got this huge list of just a bunch of stuff against Bitcoin pairs, and I'll just quickly go through a lot of them, and you'll see a lot of crazy, ugly downtrends. Like this, there's probably 20 of them in this list that look like this. So again, just because alt dominance is going up doesn't mean you can just go grab an alt or grab your favorite alt, or more importantly, don't be married to some alt because you think the tech is like the best tech and it's going to be the best thing in the world someday. And so you're going to buy it now because you know that in 2 years from now, it's going to have mass global adoption and it's going to take over the world. And you were smart and you got in now. Don't do that. Don't. Nobody cares about the in crypto. Nobody cares about the tech. You need to be looking at these charts right now, because the only thing that matters is what has buzz right now and what is outpacing Bitcoin. And this isn't, I mean, again, big just downtrend against Bitcoin, big downtrend against Bitcoin. I mean, look at this. All of them are like this. Yeah, we get a bit of a peak up here, but like, this is what you need to be wary of. Like Convex, great project. I mean, they do cool stuff. The huge market cap. Like I've made a bunch of money on Convex last cycle. I was staking Convex, but like, don't buy this, Near, VeChain, ugly, good tech, but ugly, I mean, I'm not going to go through this whole list, but you get the point. The point is, go through, find charts that are doing well. This one, and this is kind of disappointing. I actually was a bit of a fan of this chart. I think this is a good thing that they're doing, these guys over there, of this project rather. But just like, see it, this is a perfect example of a project that's great tech, Algorand, great tech, no buzz. That's all that matters. All of these, they all just look terrible. So yeah, you get the point. You need to be, you need to have charts that are doing this against Bitcoin right now. Okay. So like find some and focus on that. And that's what's pumping right here. That's what this is those charts that are doing good. Not the charts that are doing bad. And the problem is there's what, 3, 4, 5,000 altcoins now. Like, it's ridiculous. So, but I mean, it only takes a handful of bigger ones to kind of move this. So whatever, but just, there's opportunities to be had if you kind of do your homework and know what you're looking for, and just kind of pay attention to who's talking about. Like, go on crypto Twitter. Don't blindly throw money at anything that anybody says, but if you see somebody point something out on crypto Twitter, that's your cue to go, oh, hey, maybe I'll go and do my own research. Maybe I'll look into this project, see what it's like, what it's doing, what its chart looks like, what its smart contract looks like. Make sure it's not shady, make sure it's not a scam or a rug, and kind of dig into it. And just, that's how, that's a great way that I find, or be part of different communities. Real Vision obviously is an amazing one that I'm part of, that I get so much information from. So, do things like that. Join Real Vision, join whatever community you want. There's dozens of them out there, but just, that's where you're going to find the stuff that is doing this. And so, yeah, I don't know. That's my rant on that. So anyway, oops. All right. I think that's probably good for today. I've gone through the charts. So kind of just to briefly recap on Bitcoin, really what I'm looking at is I am expecting probably, my base case is that we have another leg up, but that doesn't mean that we can't come down into this range. That doesn't mean that we can't come down and tap this 20-day moving average before then, because we are kind of right in that sweet spot in the cycle on day 26 where, you'll get sometimes a bit of a lull and maybe a little bit of a reset, and then, it kicks up for another leg. So keep that in mind, and don't freak out if that happens. That's not the end of the world. That doesn't mean go and sell all your stuff, take profits and get out. Just this is how cycles work. This is the way it happens. So just kind of be expecting it. Look for a bit of a retrace. Maybe we don't get one at all, but maybe we do. And then I think, in the next really month plus, I guess, what is that? What would day 40 put us at cycle wise? So if we look at day 40, that's going to put us around the 20th of November. So a couple more weeks. In a couple weeks is where I, just based on the idea of a 60-day cycle, where we could reasonably top out is in a couple weeks from now. So that would be great. What that might look like in terms of Bitcoin, like if we go, I need to start looking at what's above here, probably on the monthly level first, and sort of see what we got in terms of resistance. We got a level here, possibly this level here. So we'd be up into potentially up into the 40s. I think we've got another bit of a level here at 38. So kind of in this cluster is what I'm looking at, which is basically low 40s up to 45 even. So, it's not out of the question. It's not unreasonable. So we shall see. All right. I think with that, I'm going to end it, and we'll see what things look like on Thursday. So,